across the world. I am Preeti Pandey, coordinator of this session. It's my privilege to welcome you all to this session of the International Conference on Reimagining and Reclaiming the Knowledge Tradition of Bharat Beyond Boundaries and Definitions. This conference brings together scholars, researchers, and thought leaders from diverse backgrounds, united by a shared interest in exploring Bharat's vast and profound knowledge traditions. Before we begin, it is my great honor to introduce the chair of this session, Dr. Rajneesh Gupta sir, a distinguished professor of JNU. We are privileged to have him to lead this session, offering valuable insights that will enrich our discourse. With that, I now invite sir to take over the session and guide us through this enlightening discussion. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, rather, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session. I think it's last session of this 2 days conference, and so we're having much discussion on Indian knowledge tradition, Bharati Gyan Parampara in last 2 days, and I don't want to take much of your time. But let me briefly tell you about the timing and all. So everybody should get fair time, enough time, and there should be no any way of distribution on that front. So there are six papers here, and we have time about 2 hours, 120 minutes. So what I propose, each of you may take 15 to 18 minutes, and rest of the time we will try to have some sort of discussion and some observation. I would also like to say something in the last 5 minutes or so. So without wasting any time, may I invite Dr. Sudip Bhui, Assistant Professor, SKP University, Puralia, and he'll be speaking on acquiring knowledge and experiences through performing Karma, folk culture heritage, song and dance in Chota, Nagpur, Plateau, towards inclusiveness and sustainability, moving with creation and transmission knowledge among Santal. So 15 minutes to you, and I'll just knock once there are 15 minutes are over, and then you can conclude in next 3 minutes or so. Okay?
Good evening to chairperson and organizers, and I am very happy to represent my university and research topic in this prestigious platform and what Bharatiya knowledge tradition. It's a good emerging area in our global research agenda and also human welfare. So we rightly pointed out these seminars, and we are going through these endeavors. My chairpersons also mentioned my topic, so you would get the notions and in which I am researching here. The Karam festivals, one for cultural heritage and one religio performing events in especially the Chota Nagpur regions. Generation transmission and protection of traditional knowledge is the theme of United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in 2019 to mitigate challenges of structural inequalities and social exclusion and vulnerability. In the March 2024, Government of India hosted a meeting with UN agencies and other global organizations make an effective initiative for overall tribal development along with socio-cultural heritage. And before going to the topic, we should know about the approaches what is used here to make the individual. D. Matsumoto 2007 and A. Levor in 2013 describe culture as an essential element of human existence, offering solutions to the challenges that intellectually capable persons must navigate to succeed. J.S. and G.S. Harvey 2024. He described that India's culture is like a cloth made of threads from different regions, language, art and traditions. Folk and tribal cultures are important parts of the cultural landscape. They give people a lot of ways to show themselves. D.C. Juan and T.P. Nam also advocate the folklore is something that a group of people make up based on their tradition to show what the community wants and their social cultural traits. Day 2012, he also emphasized on folk culture, also known as Lokosanskriti, is an integral aspect of human activity encompassing customs, traditions, fairs, culture, mythology, festivals and music, all inherited from our ancestors via their consistent practice. G.M. Foster 1953 also note this folk culture by using the Lord Redfield's concept, the peasant society concept, very famous in Yucatan village, and he stated that employed the phrase folk culture and elucidated the scientific significance of societies, noting that folk culture emerged after the urban revolution. In this age, globalization, folklore, tradition and customs help to define both regional and national identities. There are cultural events that showcase folklore and occasionally are also linked to dance. S. Ahmed in 2024, he also gave importance in folk literature in India is a tapestry that has been woven over a long period as a cultural heritage of various communities. Folk literature provided insight into the historical development of folklore from oral tradition as evidenced by folk tales, melodies and rituals. Folk literature fosters critical thinking, cultural comprehension and language acquisition through the community engagement and empowerment. We also know very much that the classical knowledge or the traditional knowledge has been promoted to the Indian from folk culture and oral tradition also. So oral tradition is the basis of the classical knowledge and it has immense contributions in Indian civilization also. S. College 2016 state that local knowledge is the foundation of Indian art and craft, and contemporary mass media facilitate the integration of traditional art with modern society. K.A. Mamati in 2021 says that taboos, totems of traditional practice are valuable resources for fostering environmental awareness among the young people. And D. Stanley in 2015 give the approaches in community-based participatory research. So participatory research means where the researcher and the research community they participate as well as simultaneously to get on research findings. Now we can review the potentials in folk cultural researches in aim to the community inclusion and development. M. Igorov 2019 described how folk dance in Russia work as a means of conserving and conveying ethnocultural traditions of Sakha community in harsh natural and climatic conditions of North Russia. They argued that folk dance, through its information dissemination, helped to bind together the community. M.A.M. Bedoa in 2002, folk dance have prominent role in soft skill development as derived from the quasi-experimental study conducted by him. And V. Melzovic 2012 argued that folk dance or performance is significant as it practicing folk dance, impart crucial knowledge required for holistic development of an individual in a community. Yes. This is my research design. The research problem now, I have discussed about the research problem, the indigenous knowledge. How can we understand the indigenous knowledge, how its knowledge is created, and how this knowledge is transmitted through generation to generation, and what are the utilities of this knowledge in our everyday life, especially the stakeholders community who carry forward and nurture this tradition. K.L. Dolinina 2020 has used the Michel Foucault's critical knowledge theory and fear-worthy theory of practical tools developed to understand the system of traditional knowledge transferred in Indian classical dance performance. L.P. Coladangelo in 2020, using case study method, tried to preserve and disseminate the cultural heritage information about the folk dance practice by indigenous communities of North America. And in our India, R. Gondopadhyay and K. Mojumdar, 2012, articulated the role of folk performance through disseminating knowledge in inclusive development. Kalita and Deka also provide emphasis to development of ontology to preserve traditional dance practices. And A. Ghosh in 2010 brilliantly showed how Santal, a Mundar-speaking tribe in eastern part of India, disseminate the information and communication through traditional system, including practicing folk music and folk performance like dance. To framing the research methodology and design, I have chosen the research problem as a indigenous knowledge, and especially in the Karam dance or Karam tradition. Then I put in theoretical framework like Dolinina and Michel Foucault, Coladangelo, and then I come to research question. Next. Okay, I have two research questions here. The tribal people of Chota Plateau keep practice the worship and performance of Karam since an immemorial time. How this tradition still survive instead of colonization, modernization, and forced independence turn. My second research question is songs and dances are embedded with a large body of indigenous knowledge of the performance community, how components are required, disseminated and transformed to make competence with their integrated socio-cultural life. Followed the research questions, I put here three objectives in my research. First, to explore the nature and boundary of knowledge transmitted through Karam songs with traditional gesture, posture and value of understudy area. My second objective is to set up a model in understanding the learning, also knowledge creation and dissemination process.
We have time, but it's already 10 minutes past. You are still your research objectives. So can you move pretty fast? It's just to support you, otherwise you
Yes,
will
thanks.
the Muslim practice.
And my third objective to examine the role of performance in practicing and utilizing the knowledge resources to mitigate the global challenges toward the sustainable and inclusive development. Next. Research map. Yes. In this research, I have chosen two villages, one from Jharkhand and one from West Bengal. You know, these are the areas where we can find the Karam performances, and I have chosen two villages, two big villages with more than 200 families and more than 1,000 population, and then one in Puralia and near the Parabajar block, and another in the Potomda block of Jharkhand, East Simbhum district. So there the Santal dominated village, and many persons involved in the cultural performance in different type of performances in their communities. And in Fuljor village, we have observed the practices Karam, Pata, Dong, Nagre, Baha, Sohrai, Gola, Galwar, and in Kankiti village
Jharkhand. They also practice a good number of cultural performances like Karam, Pata, Dong, Lagre, Baha, Sarai and Chota. So we know a prominent information about the Santal tribe. You know, Santal is the largest tribal group in West Bengal and are found in each and every district of state. And they are also found in Jharkhand, Bihar, Nepal, Bangladesh, and the Karam festival is a popular festival of Chota Plateau, reflect language, folklore, regional rituals, socio-cultural life, community living, Santal, Kurmi, Bhumij, and many other marginal sections of eastern India community, they perform the Karam. Karam is a plant whose scientific name is Haldina cardifolia, and the deification of Karam is myth, and they worship and perform the Karam song in the cultural program. So among the Santal, we can find the two different types of Karam, Int Karam and Chata Karam. And Santal especially they emphasize on the Int Karam, and they also perform the songs and dances in the Chata Karam. So they perform the Karam worship and dances with two mythological beliefs. One is the sun represents masculine energy, while the earth symbolizes the feminine energy, and their union is believed to result in the creation of life and growth of crops. And second, Karam Puja announced their date, which said to have first discovered agricultural methods and initiated the farming practices. The Karam performances I already mentioned. There are worship, performance, and another category worship and performance both. So in this village, when we consider this in combined study area, then we can count the 18% of Santal peoples, they perform their worshipping only. They do not perform. But in 7% they only perform but not worship. But majority of them, about 75%, they perform both the worshipping and performance. In Karam performance, the performance they follow the rules and belief like observer must fast on the day of the puja. Preparation begins 7 days in advance. Participants wear traditional sarees, perform song and dances. Now I want to describe one song about the song by the Santal community. Aam khatir ho karam sai.
Minutes past. Yeah, 3 minutes.
Okay, so I want to go through one model, three model. Please go to three model.
You can take 2 more minutes, something around, but you have to manage that. This maximum.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
As my second objectives is there. I have to make effort to make one model to understand the Karam song. Here you can find one tree. By tree model, tree model I have chosen here because a tree is a part of environment and it's the amidst of other plants, animals, and our environment also. So in tree models, you have the main trunk. Trunk is the basis of the plant, and it is existence through the time to time. So the in main trunk depicts the traditional core of the Karam songs, and evolution of the society also reflected here, and folk and ritualistic influences also here present, and religion and social role play a significant activities to running the model. Understanding? So music also take a important part in this phase. And second phase, I want to describe the roots of this plant. The roots of this plant by which the Karam cultural event or customs, it take inputs from these aspects, like the indigenous knowledge. The indigenous knowledge is constant sources for the Karam songs, religious practices, which motivate the people to perform the Karam, and cultural resilience and folk influences, adaptation to change, and music also play a good part of here, and personal experience or the person making the personality. Then from the Karam song or performing a Karam song, the people and the society also get the community bonding, cultural innovation, social resilience, knowledge sharing, group solidarity, intercultural exchange, and modern efficiency. Language also play a good part here because language is the vehicle of culture, and in performance of Karam song, language also play a very crucial role. In conclusion, I come to here. The tribal life in India carries a reminiscence of bygone days of formation of Indian civilization. Karam worshipping and performances have roots in ancient Indian civilization, along with the autochthonous tribal lore and life. In this way, it represents the Bharat as well as culture of marginal societies shouting inclusiveness that reflect the region-specific and community-oriented political and economic life, analysis of composition and performance of Karam songs and dance among the Santal tribe of two villages, Jharkhand and West Bengal, reveals that each and every part of the tribal society and culture closely integrated with entire area of social cultural life and suited to bring confidence in social dynamics. Ideology coherent from each and every aspect of Santal life are explored from process of interdependence at individual, family and community level. Individual as building blocks of an entire society come from the personality formation oriented by traditional life system and its philosophy. The dance creates a space of harmony and integration for better health and social solidarity. Tree model help us to understand the rubric and actual process in the midst of other activities of their life as inputs and output of socio-cultural influences. Indigenous knowledge has been created through observation, experience and acceptance of common people and authenticated by its application. This indigenous knowledge is duly embedded with folk cultural heritage, play essential role to mitigate the emerging problems in different aspects of their life, agricultural operation, care, value, and their day-to-day problem. In this regard, transformation Karam song has been made against the newly emerging challenges, mobility, communication, and regional cultural trend bring problems and to their population. Female participation, glory of history among the members of society, nation building. In the last decades, our Indian tribal brethren also create much more leadership. In near future, we should encourage researchers in this area to get more contribution, validating the ethno-medicinal knowledge.
Well, due to paucity of time, I'll make my observational comments at the last if time permits. Now, may I invite Dr. Pratyush Singh, is teaching in Aurobindo College, Delhi University. Topic of his presentation is modern management lessons from the ancient Indian knowledge system. So please stick to time.
And thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. I also take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy JNU and the convener of this conference. We all know as teachers what a gigantic task it would have been for the organizers of this conference, and all the volunteers, students of the center deserve all the applause that we can give to them. So please, however small numbers we have there, just give them a huge round of applause. They have done a great job. Now, coming to my presentation. Today I am going to talk about what lessons we can draw from our own ancient Indian texts in the field of management. I'll try to keep my presentation short so that we can spend more time on the discussion. So when we think of management today, we often think of high-rise buildings, boardroom meetings, business schools churning out future leaders. But some of the core principles of management we can find in our own ancient texts, specifically texts which we have already had discussions in our previous presentations. Texts like Bhagavad Gita, texts like Arthashastra, Tirupul, and Upanishads. There are many more texts which we can find management lessons from, but for my research and my paper, I have focused on these 4 texts. And I must tell you here that I have only gone through the translated version of these texts, so I have not gone through the original texts. And skimming through these texts, I have been able to identify 5 dominant themes that modern managers can use in their day-to-day lives. And if we can go to the next slide. These are stress management, leadership and ethical decision making, strategic thinking, employee motivation, sustainability, and environmental responsibility. Let me tell you, having experience of working in a corporate as well as in the public sector, stress management is one of the biggest challenges of managing a team right now. Every company is grappling with this challenge, and some of the solutions lie in our ancient traditions like yoga, pranayama, dhyana as tools of stress management and productivity enhancement. And there is scientific backing to it as well. Can we move to the next slide? There was a study conducted by the Harvard Business School that found that corporate mindfulness programs improve focus, reduce stress by 1/3, and increase productivity by at least 15%. I'm really sorry. So this is an academic study. But the real application of management principles is in organizations. And in every leading organization of the world, we see these programs being implemented. So the examples are Infosys, which has a yoga and meditation boot camp for its new joinees. Then there is a mindful leadership program that the organization conducts. Again, one of the leading companies of the world, Google, has a program called Search Inside Yourself, which is developed surprisingly by a former engineer and not from India, which focuses on enhancing emotional intelligence and resilience of the employees. This program was inspired by Indian meditation techniques and has now been adopted by Google offices worldwide. Another leading IT company, IBM, also incorporates yoga-based resilience training in their training programs, and several of our Indian companies do so as well. In my own experience, ICICI Bank used to take us for a 15-day of a Vipassana resembling sort of a experience, where it was meditation, where it was yoga combined with corporate training. Can we move to the next slide, please? The second theme is the leadership and ethical decision making, which again Indian tradition and Indian texts are very richly filled with. Bhagavad Gita is one of the leading texts, which says that if you have the right to perform your duty, you have the right to perform your duty, but never to its fruits. And this seems counterintuitive in today's management world, where profit drives everything. But now even developmental economists and managers have come to realize, and that's one of the reasons why we have sustainable development goals now, that businesses cannot focus solely on profit. They have to make their businesses sustainable, then only the society becomes sustainable. Some of the examples, and our own homegrown brand Tata is the biggest example of ethical leadership. If many of us would remember the time when Tata was setting up its nano factory in West Bengal and ran into huge political troubles. Some of us might know that Tata had a way out of adopting some means which might be termed as unethical, but we all know that Ratan Tata personally did not follow that path and chose to move the entire manufacturing facility to the completely different part of India, moved it from the eastern part to the western part of India. Again, another incidents which highlights how ethical leadership is important and how our Indian tradition holds it is when Tata supported Kargil war widows, and provided them with financial aid and jobs. After the 26/11 attacks on India and on one of the Tata Group establishments, Tata Group ensured that victims' family received support, not just financially, but also education for their children. The third theme that I was able to identify was strategic thinking and crisis management. And Chanakya's Arthashastra is one of the best documents that one can find, and this is used not only by managers and research scholars but also developmental economists. But I'm not going to focus on the developmental economy part of it. I'll focus on the management principles. And long before Harvard Business Schools talked about competitive strategy, one of the major cornerstones of modern management principle, Chanakya wrote in Arthashastra that before taking any action, a wise leader must assess its long-term impact on the state, economy, as well as people. And what are some of the examples? Who are the companies that follow this? Leading companies like Apple. The Apple that we know now, which has the largest market cap in the world, was not always a successful company. At one time, it was in huge soup. And then in 1990s, Steve Jobs, who was thrown out of Apple, was brought in to revive the company. And he followed one of the key tenets from this book: eliminating weak products, using innovation as a weapon, strategic alliances. Surprisingly, Steve Jobs had an alliance with Microsoft, who was the biggest competitor and who had forced Apple out of the market, its biggest rival. And this is the best example of diplomatic pragmatism that one can find both in our texts as well as in our business world. Again, one of the most important themes that I was able to identify was employee motivation and workplace ethics. And I refer to the document, the Tirukural. It's in Tamil, written by one of the greatest poets of India, Tiruvayur, which emphasizes that one has to treat their employees with fairness and respect, not as pure resources, but as humans who are your partners in businesses. And now this trend of treating your employees is again being questioned by some of the business leaders. We all have seen how some business people advocate a 90-hour, a 70-hour work week, but we also see how several successful businesses have also said that this is aggressive and this will only lead to more work dissatisfaction. Which are some of the companies that follow it to the letter T? Again, Google. Google has a rule which is called the 20% rule, where they allow their employees to spend 20% of their time practically doing nothing. They tell their employees that you do nothing, but they are supposed to come up with ideas. And this was the program in which Gmail came up. The time which employees were given free to think, to ponder on their own lives, on their workspaces, gave one of the most highly used products that we have today. The fifth theme and the last one which I am going to talk about is sustainability and environmental responsibility. And I go back to Atharva Veda's teaching for this theme, where the Atharva Veda says that the earth is our mother and we are her children. May we not harm her in our greed. And if you look at the Sustainable Development Document produced by UN in 2015, this is the dominant theme throughout that document, and all the 11 or 13 goals that UN has talks about the synergy between businesses, between environment and society. What are some of the examples that modern businesses are using this? Our own homegrown company called ITC, which follows a sustainable model, which follows a carbon positive practice, a water positive practice, and waste recycling approach. ITC has an initiative called eChaupal, which helps rural farmers with real-time market access, boosting their income and reducing wastage. This company has also planted more than 100 million trees, trying to restore some of the ecological damage that businesses do while performing their business activities. The corporate world's shift towards environmental, social, and governance principles mirrors the deep respect for nature found not only in our Indian texts but in the Indian society as a whole. And lastly, and to conclude, I would like to say that whether we are business leaders, whether we are government officials, social entrepreneurs, the teachings from Indian texts provide a blueprint for responsible and effective leadership. And by reviving this wisdom, we can build organizations that are not only successful, but also ethical, sustainable, and people-centric. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Very wonderful presentation because the topic is very different, but you are more to the topic of commerce, Chanakya policy. So that's
yes, now we have to see whether this change was a refreshing change or a damp squid.
I got also new idea.
Thank you, Pratyush, for sticking on time and now in fact you made my job little easier. Now I invite Dr. Richa, Shukla, Samarth Singh, Ashiya. They're from IIT Bhubaneswar, and the topic of presentation is lost causes of or lost community and epistemological account of the Charan community of Rajasthan. So again 15 minutes plus 15 plus 3 minutes. Richa? No? Okay, Bhagesh Ashman is again not here, but the co-presenter is here. Rachna Devi from BHU, Banaras Hindu University. And the topic of presentation is Bridging East and West Together, a comparative study of Bharatiya, what is it? Bharatiya AMP Western intellectual traditions with special reference to democracy. Okay, I think it's not clear about. Anyway, you would be in a better position to explain that. So again, 15 plus 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm very thankful to sir and this department for giving me this opportunity. My name is Rachna, and I'm excited to present my research paper on Bridging East and West Together, a comparative study of Bharatiya and Western intellectual tradition with special reference to democracy. Actually, I'm not researching in this topic. My research topic is very different. I'm working on cultural diplomacy. But I found some key area about Indian intellectual system, about Sabha and Samiti. So I thought I should write a paper on this topic. So I select this topic and I will try to justify my paper here. What does it truly mean to be a democracy? Is it merely a system of governance, or is it a reflection of civilization, deepest intellectual and cultural tradition? This presentation which explore the impact throughout history, Bharatiya and Western intellectual tradition have shaped and reshaped our understanding of democracy. While the West often emphasized individual right, legal framework and liberal values, the Bharatiya tradition offer a moral, holistic, dharmic and community-driven approach to governance and social harmony. Nevertheless, how do these perspectives interact and what can they learn from each other? In my presentation, I will cover some key areas of my paper, that rule of law, representative government, accountable form of government, Buddhist philosophy, the way of ancient Indian democracy, and the Indian way of secularism, and contemporary debates on democracy. So first of all, rule of law in ancient Indian democracy. The concept of the rule of law in ancient Indian democracy was deeply rooted in dharma, a moral and legal code that governs society. Unlike modern legal system, the rule of law in ancient India was based on ethical principle, fairness and justice rather than strict codified laws alone. In the Vedas, Manusmriti and Arthashastra provide legal guidelines emphasizing equality before the law. Even kings were not above the law. They were expected to uphold dharma and ensure justice. The Sabha and Samiti, early democratic assemblies, allowing people's voice to be heard, showcasing participatory governance. I have read somewhere that अगर सभा और समिति जो थी, सभा like राज्य सभा in modern time and samiti was like lok sabha in modern time. If Raja was not, king was not working well, then a samiti had a right to recall the king. So that's why that was the rule of law. Ancient texts mention institutions like the panchayat system, where village elders resolved disputes based on custom and fairness. Court known as Nyayapitha ensured that the justice was accessible to all. Kautilya's Arthashastra emphasized the ruler should protect people's rights and prevent corruption, ensuring legal accountability. Thus, ancient Indian democracy upheld the rule of law through a blend of moral duty, social ethics and structural governance, ensuring justice and order in society. Though different from modern democracy, it laid the foundation for legal principles that still influence in India today. Second, representative government. When we are talking about the representative government, ancient Indian republics known as Mahajanpada, in 16 Mahajanpada, we very well known about that, thrived between the 6th and 4th century BC. Among them, states like Vaisali, Lichvi, Sakya followed a democratic system where governance was not in the hand of a single ruler but a council of elected representatives. These councils, known as Sabha and Samiti, functions like modern parliaments. Leaders were chosen through discussion, elections and merit, ensuring the voice of people were heard. This tradition extends to village level governance through the panchayat system, where local elders and elected members took decisions for the welfare of their community. And these institutions promote justice, debate and public participation, highlighting India's early commitment to democratic values. Next, accountable form of government. Ancient India had a rich tradition of democratic governance, which accountability as a key principle. The concept of Sabha and Samiti, two important political institutions, ensure that rulers were answerable to the people. These assemblies, often found in Vedic time and later in republic like Vaisali and Lichvi, played a crucial role in decision making. Next, the Ganatantra of ancient India, such as those of the Vajji and Malla confederations, functions with collective leadership. A ruling council, often elected by the people or chosen by consensus, was responsible for governance. The king or leader was not absolute. Instead, he had to consult the council before making significant decisions. This ensured transparency and accountability in ancient Indian democracy. Moreover, ancient Indian texts like the Arthashastra by Kautilya emphasize the importance of a responsible and just administration. It prescribed strict laws against corruption and promoted the welfare of the people, which we know about the welfare state and all these. Public debate, discussion and law ensured that rulers remained accountable. Thus, ancient Indian democracy was not just about election, but also about responsible government where rulers had to justify their action before the people. This makes it one of the earliest examples of accountable government. Megasthenes, who visited India as the ambassador of Seleucus Nicator and stayed at the Mauryan court during Chandragupta region, described the king receiving complaints and discussing matters of state even when being messaged. Ashoka emphatically declares in one of his edicts that no member of the ministerial council should be debarred from seeing him no matter where he may the way of ancient Indian democracy in Buddhist philosophy, rooted in the teaching of the Buddha, emphasize wisdom, compassion, and ethical conduct. If I am talking about the Buddhist philosophy, then I am talking about the four Buddhist Sangiti. When we are talking about the Buddhist Sangiti, it was an open discussion. According to some books, वो विश्व का, जैसे अमर्त्य सेन की मैं बुक पढ़ रही थी, द आर्गुमेंटेटिव इंडिया, उसमें उन्होंने लिखा है कि वो विश्व की पहली ओपन डिस्कशन था, जिसमें वहाँ पे लोगों की जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं उनको कलेक्ट करके उनको शॉर्ट आउट करने का प्रयास किया जाता था. सो इट वॉज ए, क्योंकि हम लोग पढ़ते हैं, जैसे मैंने बुकानन को पढ़ा कि उन्होंने पब्लिक चॉइस थ्योरी में दिया है कि डेमोक्रेसी बाय डिस्कशन. सो अगर इफ वी आर लुकिंग डेमोक्रेसी बाय डिस्कशन, देन वी शुड सी दैट ऑल्सो, कि अगर डेमोक्रेसी बाय डिस्कशन की बात करते हैं तो बुद्धिस्ट संगीति पहली ऐसी बैठक थी जहाँ पे ओपन डिस्कशन हुआ करते थे, लोगों की प्रॉब्लम को सॉर्ट आउट किया जाता था, लोगों को इलेक्ट किया जाता था, और वहाँ ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड जहाँ से भी लोगों को अप्रोच होता था वो लोग आते थे और उसमें भाग लेते थे. सो इट वॉज ए ओपन डिस्कशन. In ancient India, especially in republic like Vaisali and Kapilvastu, governance was participatory. These Gana Sangha function as early form of democracy, where rulers were not absolute monarch but elected leaders who consulted assemblies. Decisions were made collectively, often through open debates and consensus, much like the principle of dialogue and reason found in Buddhist teaching. The Buddha himself encouraged democratic values within the Sangha. The monastic order, monks and nuns made decisions through discussion and voting, ensuring equality and freedom of thought. This spirit of inclusivity and shared leadership influenced governance beyond religious settings. Infusion of Buddhist philosophy and ancient Indian democracy teaches us timeless lesson. Leadership should be just, power must be shared, and society thrives when wisdom and compassion guide governance. These ideals remain relevant today as we strive for peace, justice and true democratic spirit. Next, the Indian way of secularism. Secularism is very disputed word, and sorry, I am using this one for this topic, because secularism came from Western concept, and it is not an Indian word. I was listening Rajiv Bhargav, and he said that is a Christian concept. India has a very different type of secularism. India secularism is unique, distinct from the Western concept of separation between religion and state. Rather than excluding religion from public life, Indian secularism embraces the coexistence of multiple faiths while ensuring that the state treats all religion equally. India is not separating state and religion. He can intervene also. In the constitution, Indian secularism guarantees freedom of religion while allowing the state to intervene in religious practice to promote social justice, such as abolishing untouchability and uplifting marginalized community. Unlike the Western model, which often follows a strict non-interference approach, India practices what can be called principal distance, respecting all religions but stepping in which necessary to uphold equality and harmony. Despite its challenging, Indian secularism has played a vital role in maintaining unity in a diverse nation. It promotes interfaith dialogue, fosters tolerance, and ensures no religion dominate public life. However, safeguarding this secular fabric requires consent effort. Every citizen is responsible for upholding the value of mutual respect, constitutional morality, and inclusive governance. Contemporary debates on democracy. Democracy, long held as the principle of governance, face unprecedented challenges in the 21st century. While it has delivered freedom, prosperity, and human rights, it is now at a crossroads. Populism, many misinformation and declining trust in institutions threaten its foundations. Some argue that democracy is losing effectiveness and cannot tackle pressing global issues like climate change, economic equality, inequality, and technological disruption. Other counter that democracy is resilient, capable of reform and adaptation through civil engagement and innovation. In the digital age, has transformed democratic discourses. Social media, once seen as a tool for empowerment, now fuels polarization and disinformation. Meanwhile, authoritarianism is rising, offering an alternative governance model that some view as more efficient. The question we must ask is, how can democracy evolve to meet modern challenges while upholding its core value of participation, transparency, and justice? The answer lies not in abandoning democracy but in renewing it. And we must strengthen democratic institutions, promote media literacy, and ensure inclusive governance. Democracy future is not predetermined. It is in our hand. Let's act boldly to preserve and enhance it for generations to come. Conclusion. Relation to democracy, it becomes evident that both traditions offer profound insight into governance, society, and human dignity. The Western tradition rooted in Greek philosophy and Enlightenment ideals emphasize individual right, rule of law, and participatory governance. On the other hand, the Bharatiya tradition, drawing from Vedic, Buddhist, and Dharmic philosophers, envisions democracy as a moral and collective responsibility, and deeply intertwined with dharma and social harmony. True democracy is not just about elections and institutions but about cultivating a spirit of inclusivity, dialogue, and mutual respect. While the West champions liberty and institutional framework, Bharatiya thought remains us the governance, ethical, and spiritual dimensions. A synthesis of these two perspectives can lead to a more holistic democracy that balances right with duties, freedom and responsibility, and individual progress with collective well-being. And in this era of global transformation, the true challenges lie not in choosing between these traditions but in harmonizing them. By bridging the wisdom of the East and the West, we can foster a democracy that is just sustainable and deeply rooted in human values. Democracy should not be seen as an exclusively Western concept. By integrating Bharatiya wisdom and Western legal framework, we can create a governance model that is both just and sustainable. Last but not the least, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, a perfect blend of East and West in democratic ideals. Thank you so much.
Keeping in time and making my job more easier. Now I invite Dr. Gitesh Nirban, a faculty at Kamla Nehru College, Delhi University. She will be speaking on the art of self-cultivation, philosophical resonance of the Bhagavad Gita's wisdom in Confucian thought. Okay, so please.
Namaskar to everyone. With the permission of chair, without taking any extra minute, I would start with the presentation of certain thoughts that I have gathered. So the topic of my presentation is the art of self-cultivation, philosophical resonance of Bhagavad Gita's wisdom in Confucian thought. So before I go ahead making certain remarks about how the Bharatiya Gyan Parampara as inherent in Bhagavad Gita has travelled and finds resonances in other systems of thoughts also, I would like to share that the very purpose of picking up a topic comparing Bhagavad Gita with Confucian tradition in China has been because of the fact that I had been a visiting scholar in 2024 for 2 months at Tufu. Tufu is a small place in China which is the birthplace of Confucius, and I got to learn that they are promoting so much of cross-cultural research there. Chinese have been a very closed community for a very long time from the intellectual perspective, but I think leaving apart politics, they are quite open to interesting cross-cultural ideation as well as research. So I had picked up there the topic of address as how Bhagavad Gita, a very important text within our tradition, Indian knowledge system, has so many thoughts which are very well reflected in their tradition also. So it's like expansion of Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. That is what I'm going to be talking about. So if we look at Bhagavad Gita, it's a small text which is nestled within the epic Mahabharata, and it presents a profound philosophy of self-cultivation. Now when we talk about philosophy of self-cultivation, I want to point it out to you that it is in the recent times that everyone in the world is talking about self-cultivation, and the self-cultivation philosophies are very ancient, and it is to our surprise that most of them have origin in Asia, be it Hinduism, be it Buddhism, be it Taoism, Confucianism, and one that is Stoicism from Greece. So I just want to share that my paper basically aims to illustrate how Gita's teachings delivered by Lord Krishna to Arjuna on the battlefield provide a comprehensive framework for self-cultivation which finds resonance, in fact remarkable resonances in many aspects of Chinese philosophy as found in the Analects of Confucius. Although both of them are arising in a distinctive cultural and philosophical landscapes, yet these texts share fundamental principles regarding human development, ethical conduct, and the pursuit of moral excellence. So, because of the paucity of time, I'm only going to be presenting how the key elements that examine how Bharatiya Gyan Parampara embodied in Bhagavad Gita echoes very significantly in Confucian thought, particularly in relation to cultivation of ethical consciousness and the development of moral character. So this study essentially illustrates how the philosophical exchanges between India and China are both ancient and unique, focusing on the transformative humanitarian changes in the lives of individuals, and how Indian knowledge tradition finds its thoughts, ideas and principles prevalent even in China. So straight away I would like to share 5 key points of how Bhagavad Gita's principles are reflected in Confucian thought also. So number 1 is duty and righteousness. Now Bhagavad Gita establishes duty as a cornerstone of self-cultivation, and I'm sure in the whole course of the 2 days of conference, Bhagavad Gita might have come many a times in many of the presentations, and we find that it is in the form of Krishna's guidance to Arjuna, who categorically says you have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. This pivotal teaching emphasizes action without attachment to results, a disciplined approach to duty that transcends selfish motivation. Now, this sense of duty finds its counterpart in Analects of Confucius also, where Confucius states, the master said, Confucius said, sincerity and truth are the foundation of every virtue. Just as Krishna urges Arjuna to fulfill his warrior's duty despite personal reluctance, Confucius advocates for righteous action over personal gain, remarking that poverty and low status obtained honorably are preferable to wealth and status acquired improperly. So both the traditions emphasize that path of self-discipline begins with fulfilling one's rightful duties regardless of outcomes. So this is the first point of convergence. The second point of convergence, and I want to tell you here that this is a study in progress, so there could be certain agreements and disagreements. I am very open to everything. The second point of convergence that I have found is about control of desires for inner discipline. Bhagavad Gita offers a comprehensive understanding of desire and its impact on self-cultivation. Krishna warns, he says, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment to them, and from such an attachment, lust arises, and from lust, anger follows. Now, this causal chain illustrates that how uncontrolled desires can lead to delusion and spiritual downfall, which I think Dr. Pratyush Singh was talking about, the leadership in management. These verses are very, very emphatically find prevalence in the management theories, that how much of spiritual downfall or the delusional effect that exists in the system of functioning, that we completely forget that we have to control our desires. Rather than advocating for the eradicating of desires, Bhagavad Gita promotes a mindful detachment from the objects. Never is it saying that just give up everything. It's about how do we take up everything mindfully. This Krishna's emphasis on the mind in this process is very important, wherein he says one must deliver oneself with the help of one's own mind and not degrade oneself. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Now, this teaching about mental self-mastery, it echoes within Confucius' concept of perfect virtue also, wherein it is written in Analects, to subdue oneself and return to propriety is perfect virtue. And the master said, he who governs by virtue is like a north star which maintains its place and the multitude of stars pay homage. So I am quoting simultaneously from Bhagavad Gita and Analects, and when we have discussion I can even share the numbers because otherwise I won't be able to complete the presentation. So under the second heading, I find that both traditions acknowledge self-cultivation in a form that it necessitates disciplined control over one's desires and impulses through mindfulness. Now, the third point that I found, where again we see convergence, is the path of knowledge and wisdom. Bhagavad Gita presents spiritual knowledge as transformative and purifying. Krishna says, in this world there is nothing as purifying as transcendental knowledge. One who has perfected in yoga discovers this knowledge within himself in due course of time. Now, this knowledge is not purely intellectual knowledge that is being referred to. It is an experiential knowledge arising from dedicated spiritual practice and devotion. So, Gita stresses the importance of approaching qualified teachers. And Krishna says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. This is a very beautiful Bharatiya Jnana Parampara of understanding and learning under the guidance of a teacher as well as having a seeking mind. And it is so beautiful to find that Confucius also regarded the pursuit of knowledge as essential for human development. He says, I do not reveal the truth to one who is not eager to seek knowledge. And it's in Analects 7.8, and for Confucius, a superior man's progress is always upwards, while the progress of the mean man is always downwards. So both the traditions, if we look at it, they are asserting genuine self-cultivation, and both of them try to say that it requires earnest seeking spirit, proper guidance, humble learning, which is what? Which is Guru Shishya Parampara of Bharatiyata. So the Gita's emphasis on devotional knowledge finds its parallel in Confucius' commitment to lifelong learning. So when Gita talks about devotion, it may not always be taken as a religious devotion, but it can be understood, not only can be, it should be understood as dedication. Dedication, and that's where I think the whole education system rests upon, because today we see in our own education system where all world over, where education is being given, but the spirit of dedication is not there. So and Confucius also focused on the whole concept of lifelong learning and self-improvement. My fourth point of convergence is about virtuous living vis-a-vis spiritual practice. So if you look at Bhagavad Gita, it provides an extensive catalogue of virtues: fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifices, and we can go on and on if you read it in chapter 16. These qualities are not merely ethical guidelines, but they are manifestation of divine consciousness that facilitates spiritual growth. Gita further emphasizes the social impact of virtuous living. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men will follow in his footsteps, and this is what Gita talks about, that how suggesting that how the personal virtue creates ripples of positive influence. And this beautifully resonates with even in Confucius' assertion that virtue is not left to stand alone. He who practices it will have neighbors. That means virtue, even in their system, has a kind of an influence from ours, where they say it has a ripple effect. Both traditions understand that virtue is not merely about personal improvement, but also contributes to social harmony. The Gita's emphasis on divine qualities complements Confucius' concept of superior man, who is concerned with virtue rather than comfort, demonstrating that how these traditions view virtuous conduct as center to authentic self-cultivation. Fifth point, the last point of convergence, which I have found for presenting in today's presentation, is that it's about self-reflection and higher consciousness. The Bhagavad Gita presents self-reflection as a path to universal consciousness. And Krishna says, a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees me in every being. This expanded awareness represents the culmination of yogic practice, recognizing the prevalence of divine in every existence. So Gita elevates the yogi above other spiritual practitioners. And to be a yogi, one doesn't have to discard the world and move outside, but to be where we are. So yogi is greater than an ascetic, greater than an empiricist, greater than a fruitative worker, emphasizing the transformative power of sustained self-reflection and divine communion. Confucius, interestingly, similarly valued introspection. It's written in Analects, when we see men of contrary character, we should turn inward and examine ourselves. Here he detailed his own developmental journey through decades of self-cultivation, and there is a very interesting quote within Analects which talks about how at 15, from 15 to the age of 17, he had decided how he would work towards his moral development. So, though the Gita's approach is more explicitly spiritual, while the Analects is more socially oriented, both traditions recognize that continuous self-reflection and improvement are essential for genuine transformation. So, after talking about these 5 convergences, allow me to talk about 2 differences also, sir. Give me 3 minutes exactly. So there is a kind of a divergence that comes since we are talking about Bharatiya Gyan Parampara or Jnana Parampara. I want to share that I went for a UGC training on IKS, and we had learned there that the purpose of understanding IKS is not to denigrate any system, but to understand, elevate and reimagine and reconceptualize our own tradition, so that to validate it through our own cultural understanding. We don't need validation of our culture through Western perspective. We need to validate our system through our own cultural orientation. So, as well as it was being explained to all of us that we must have respect for the other tradition and be ready and agree to disagree, because that's the system of philosophical tradition of India, that we accept all kinds of disagreements with agreement. We are not close to disagreements, we are open to disagreements with mutual respect. So there is a difference in the metaphysical foundation of Bhagavad Gita and Analects. So Bhagavad Gita establishes a profound spiritual framework in which Krishna reveals himself as a supreme divine being and the source of all existence. Self-cultivation serves the ultimate purpose of realizing one's relationship with the divine through various spiritual disciplines. Karma, Jnana, Bhakti Yoga, all 3 are being talked about there. Now, when we talk about Analects, Analytics remains primarily focused on immediate social world and practical ethics. Confucius redirected all the metaphysical inquiries towards current ethical concerns, emphasizing the cultivation of superior man, Zunzi, through appropriate conduct in human relationships. So, even in their differences, we find some kind of similarities. We have a spiritual element, they have a social element. Our spiritual element is not individualistic, our spiritual element is holistic. So, even in these divergence, I see and I sense convergence. Now the second is path to self-realization. Again, if you look at it, there are divergence, but I'll share with you how I see a kind of an agreement and disagreement here. The Bhagavad Gita presents various paths to self-realization depending upon human temperaments. It is open to everybody of every kind of attitude and belief. You have a choice. You want to move towards jnana parampara, move towards it. You want to stick to karma, do it. Don't be religious. Just be a part. Now here we have, obviously the conference must have explained everybody the difference between religion and dharma. So we may not be religious here, but we may be karmic. Then we have another parampara, and that is devotion. So all possible paths are open. So Bhagavad Gita is basically significant about internal attitudes, particularly detachment from outcomes while performing duty. No matter which path one follows, the common element is to remain detached. It's like understanding the whole concept of lotus being in the muddiest of the pond but being above it. Whereas analytics has only one form of methodology, and that is centered to external conduct and ritual propriety. So it is not open to many paths the way Bhagavad Gita open. It emphasizes learning through study. Maybe we can say that is jnana for them. Emulation of role models. It emphasizes a lot on role model. So in this divergence, I see that there is a convergence, because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the avatar, the highest manifestation, the Brahman, where it is in each one of us, but since we cannot see it, so we put it as a divine manifestation. And further, if we look at Confucius, the whole effort is on social roles. But even Bhagavad Gita is not saying don't take care of the society. It is talking about individualistic development for the holistic development. Well, now I come to the conclusion, sir, that Bhagavad Gita provides an intense and diverse pathway for self-cultivation through dutiful action, desire management, knowledge acquisition, virtuous living, and spiritual self-reflection. Despite these kind of distinctive cultural origins of the text, Analects and Bhagavad Gita, their teachings reveal striking parallels for sure. Both the tradition recognize authentic self-cultivation, and it is neither, and they both say that conduct of self, improvement of self, evolvement of self is never passive, as well as it is not self-indulgent. So in a way, both of them talk about the middle path. And I feel that Confucius, obviously the system might have got affected with Buddhism also, because there was so much of transition happening in that particular era. I will not get into the dates because I'm not a history student, I'm purely from philosophical background. So there has been some kind of a confluence in the movement. And here I would like to conclude, there is too long a conclusion, but I'm going to shorten it by saying that we live in a world with 4 H deficits, as I call it. We have diminished humanity, diminished humility, diminished humaneness, and diminished harmony. And it is these 4 H which can actually help us go back to our tradition, because somewhat the modern problems are no new problems. These kind of problems have existed since times immemorial. India is going back to tradition, and I feel China is also doing the same way, going back to tradition after hitting that peak advancement as well as suffering because of the COVID-19. So I think again we are geographically quite aligned by going back to our tradition, by going back to our parampara. Thank you.
in all these martial arts, the learning is based on a student-teacher relationship. So my paper and this talk will focus on embodied knowledge, how it's being acquired, legitimized, authenticized, and passed on from one practitioner to another. So I've gone in detail about all these things in my paper, but for the talk I'm going to focus on just the main points. And my research is based on my experiences not only as a researcher, but also as a practitioner of these martial arts for almost a decade. And it also includes 14 months of apprenticeship that I did under a few martial arts teachers. So in these martial arts, learning is more than imitation, because there are some secrets and some deeper understandings that cannot be acquired just by watching the teacher. And you need really direct instruction from the guru to learn more about the martial art. And this direct instruction is most often acquired through apprenticeship. This whole martial art and the whole learning is based on a socio-cultural context, right? In this context, the teacher is the gatekeeper to knowledge, and trust between the student and the teacher is very important for the transmission of knowledge. And how do you develop this trust? For instance, the teacher tests the student for their character. One personal example from my life is when I wanted to do this apprenticeship, I was looking for a teacher, and at that time I was living about 1.5 hours away from him. We would set for a time to meet, and I'll be there, and the kalari, the place of practice, would be closed. I would call him and he would say, "Oh, I forgot about our appointment. I double booked myself. I'm elsewhere." And then I would just stay there, practice the martial art, and return back. Sometimes he would also have other patients, because these martial arts practitioners also serve as local doctors and medical practitioners. So he would just make me travel for no reason. Only later, my guru Veeramani Asan revealed that he was testing me on several occasions before accepting me as a true disciple, and this could have very well been one of those tests. And speaking of accepting as a true disciple, so by aligning oneself with the guru or multiple gurus and deriving authenticity from his pre-established status as a renowned practitioner, the new generation of teachers create the new kind of kinship, which I call martial lineage. Martial lineage is the symbolic linkage between the guru and the student, which is a well-recognized feature of many Indian knowledge systems. It's called as Guru Shishya Parampara, Gharana, Bani, in other art forms. These lineages, in turn, form crisscrossing networks, which facilitate the movement of knowledge within various actors within these networks. And affiliating oneself to a martial lineage gives credibility to where one is from. That is, the knowledge of the practitioner gets the seal of authenticity just by being a part of this martial lineage. So this martial lineage often correlates with the familial lineage, because the sons of the guru take over the kalari. But then at times, senior most disciples take over the kalari, which at times might create conflicts, but that's beyond the scope of this paper. So when one gets accepted into the lineage, they have certain moral and cultural obligations, and it includes both the student and the teacher. The student is expected to behave in a certain way without harming anyone for no reason, and the teacher is supposed to give knowledge to the student because he has already passed all these tests. So the teacher should take care of the student, and it's kind of similar to a traditional, let's say, Tamil family setting where the father has the most authority and then the children have the least authority. So they give their agency to the father, and the father has to make sure that the children's well-being are ensured, almost in a Confucian way. So the same is reflected in these martial arts lineages as well. What advantages does one have in being in a martial lineage apart from the authentication of one's martial art? There are certain knowledge and secrets that's not revealed to everyone. In fact, not everyone is taught equally, just by the sheer fact that not everyone is coming to the kalari on a regular basis. It creates some disparities in knowledge. There are people who visit the kalari every day. There are people who come only on weekends, and a few people who just go to the kalari once or twice for a whole week in a year. So these people, they may not have access to the true knowledge or the whole knowledge, which is accessible only to true disciples. From my own personal experience, there are certain massage techniques which are very much crucial for the martial arts that are not taught to everyone. But I started learning these martial arts, and when I was practicing massage techniques along with it, my teachers noticed that I was targeting these Varma points, again these energy points, without even getting explicit training. So the knowledge, the practical knowledge that I acquired by doing these massages, by these trainings, it was in my body and it was expressed when I was doing these martial arts. Without this massage techniques and the knowledge of the body, the martial arts would be incomplete. Going back to trust, many practitioners say that it takes about 18 years of learning under one teacher to build this trust relationship. But then my position as a researcher accelerated my learning and catalyzed the whole process, because the guru believed that through me, the martial arts will go further in both time and space. And that's again my responsibility to the guru, the guru's expectations towards me. And it not only spreads the knowledge, but also gives more credibility to the knowledge when it's being spread by everyone. And this is particularly evident in the case of globalization, when many foreign people come to learn Kalaripayat and other martial arts, and they take it to their own countries and practice them in their own context. Just by the fact that they are doing that, it adds to the whole legitimacy creation process. But it keeps changing. The whole demand for trust and knowledge dissemination, it keeps changing. And one particular instance of that change was evident in the pandemic. During that time, physical transmission of knowledge was impossible. Even though the teachers insist that the students must be present physically to learn these martial arts, to the point that they even shun people who learn through videos or to books. They don't consider that kind of knowledge as legitimate. They were forced to adopt online practices. For instance, one of my Kalari gurus, Vikas Gurukul, he started teaching online for the first time, and people whom he has never met in his life in person were learning from him. And we can see that the rules are getting more relaxed depending on the situation and the context. But it should be noted that even when they are relaxed, these people cannot be considered as true disciples, and they may not get the whole access of knowledge. And even when we think of true disciples, their position within these martial arts lineage and network can change because of disputes and agreements between the guru and the students. In some cases, it has led to even expulsion from the lineage, which means that the guru has withdrawn his consent, the consent that he gave the student to teach his martial arts. So even though the student knows these martial arts, the student possesses the martial arts because it's embodied and within him, it's still considered to be illegitimate. And in the words of one of my teachers, Veeramani Asam, It's like a child that doesn't know the name of the father. So you can realize the seriousness of how the people are treated when they are kicked out of the lineage. Not only their knowledge is questioned, but also their character gets questioned. So in order to get back into the network, which is very important to them because for a lot of them, their livelihoods depend on teaching this knowledge, and that's why they need to get back into this lineage. So they form new bonds, they join other lineages, and this creates tensions within the martial arts networks because they are super interconnected, and this forcing of, let's say, this joining of people into different martial arts tradition forces these lineages to shift and transform, thereby breaking and making new relationships within the network. To conclude, when we think about martial arts, we think about this single ahistoric form of knowledge that comes through this one single lineage, which can be traced back to a source, which can be proven as to be authentic. But in reality, that's not the case. These martial arts are a lot more fluid, porous, and ever-changing, precisely because they are built on the student-teacher relationships, which are also ever-changing. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, P.S. Gautam, again for taking time. And now, with this, the first part of this session is over. Now, let's begin the second part. And so, the question and answer session. So, I invite the question, queries, comments. Yes, please, sir. So, would you like to come?
Thank you, madam. All the delegates, did a nice talk for this one. And also thankful to the JNU organizing such a wonderful workshop and conference here. And especially I'm thankful to Kamala Nehru Gitish Nirban. She's rightly explained the importance of Bhagavad Gita. Even I'm also doing a research on Bhagavad Gita through government projects. Basically, Bhagavad, the resource manual, it's a Gita, it's a line. You have to be within the line. If you cross behind the line, problems are there. That's simple sentence. Even parents say, better don't go outside. If you go outside, problems are there. But we are crossing the line. If you cross the line, problems are there. That's simple sentence. Then, nowhere in mention Bhagavad Gita, Hinduism. First chapter deals only Kauravas and Pandavas and war. That's all. From second chapter, starting to rest of the slokas, nowhere mentioned Hinduism. कहीं नहीं है. तब तो हिंदुइज्म कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं था ना भाई. देवता राक्षसी थे दोनों थे. ये कॉन्सेप्ट we developed actually. I'm following, I kept my religion. She followed, she kept religion. We're all just followers, but it has been different. Nowhere it mentioned. Basically, it's a gift. It's a gift given by the Lord Krishna to us. Why does it take? Why should it come to here? Couldn't it? Because we are a part and parcel of Supreme Lord. We are his children. He doesn't want his children to suffer. Even my son suffered, I'll go to the hospital. He's coming. He says that I come whenever the problems in the world earth. That's what he's telling. His aim is he wants to take them every 22. His home, Supreme Home. And it also talks about, because I'm more passionate about this one, I'm working for the past 4 years. And it talks about that. Everyone comes to me. I doesn't want to this one. And it talks about the Supreme Abode. What is the purpose of life, boy? We have come here. There is an aim for us. I'm going to the mall to buy some vegetables. I go to the college to get a job. Why do you take a birth? There is a specific reason for it. We don't understand it. You understand yourself by analyzing yourself. Sit in the tree and what is my skills? What mind? क्या कर सकता हूँ? क्यों मुझे भेजा यहाँ? वो सोच रहा हूँ. That's self-realization. And it talks about self-realization and God realization. And it also karma, sir. Everything is karma. Even Newton's law, karma. I analyze a lot of things. I'm a man of physics. Karma is equal to force is equal to F into ma. Force. Cause and effect. It's already mentioned. Newton has studied. Newton has come only 400 years back. But it got this done. And everything is good. And one thing, last one. And everything looks good, sir. Scriptures, are we following? My question comes to now. Talk is good, everything, I present well, you present very good. Are we following the families? Are we lighting a lamp? Are we performing a puja? Are you stopping your son? Are you taking the good food? What's the modes of nature? God said it. Take a food which is prepared, let them 3 hours. Sloka, beautiful sloka. If you take a food which is prepared more than 3 hours, it's a poison. Are we following? We are keeping a food more than 1 month back food in the refrigerator. What are the qualities? Go to see how the virus is coming, sir. Lot of the slaughter centers. We take, I'm sorry to say, meat. How much diseases they have it? Anybody quality is there? Any check is there? If some ant comes on the plate, we'll throw on the wife. That में क्या खाना बना है? वो मीट में क्या भगवान कोई क्वालिटी नहीं है? कितना डिसीज है? Don't you think that this is not going to come? It has to be the graveyard. You are frying it, keeping in the fridge and taking them in your body. That's what it is. So if you follow within the rules and regulations, everything is good. If you go behind that one, कोई नहीं कर सकता. Thank you, madam, doing wonderful talk, and we'll associate with you. And happy that your organization time to us. And one thing, sir, and I can't force it. When Lord Krishna said, don't force anybody. Your duty to tell. I am sending a Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam to more than 10,000 people for the past 2 years. It will take only 1 minute, sir. I am giving a sloka, translation in English, Hindi and Telugu. I know 3 languages. It will take only 1.5 minutes. And Bhagavatam also started. Because Bhagavatam has 18,000 slokas. If I am sending every day, it will take 18 years. Sir, 40 years for me. But I don't think I'm able to do it. But my son will continue it. That I have taken over. I started becoming 2 years. And most of people, I put in the, my channel is Vedic culture back to home. You follow Vedic culture, definitely do. If not this birth, next birth. ये spirituality आपके soul में रहेगा सारी. Soul is a chip. ये कहीं नहीं जाएगा. ये पढ़ाई physics, chemistry, engineering पर बुकवास है. वो bread and butter देगा आपको. But our spirituality will store in the soul's chip that will take you to the next birth. And why people become a spirituality after 60 years? They realize it. ये कुछ काम का नहीं है. Everybody has to go, sir. Even if you don't like it, you have to go one day. Thank you, madam, for giving a beautiful talk.
May I invite some other comments, questions, if there are any? Anybody? Yes, of course.
Can I speak from here only? He's right in front of me.
If organizers are agree to work for that?
If you permit.
No.
No, actually, from the mic it gets recorded. Okay, let's put that. It's a very simple question.
Questions will motivate.
It's process of
Answer will not get it. That is the vibration part.
I must first begin with thanking Mr. P.S. Gautam. Gautamji, you have given a beautiful presentation about the Indian martial arts, and I have been reading a bit about it. And since you also mentioned about the Confucian system here, that how they are also practicing, so just want to share first and then ask you. So when I was in Tufu, I was actually I actually went to a school of martial arts there, which is based upon the Confucian tradition. And what was most amazing for me to see was that they were talking about the Tamil martial arts there, and how they have worked upon their martial arts, taking up a lot of points from here, and they call it Chinese. So I want to know from you, are there any kind of these kind of comparative studies that are happening within martial arts? Number one, between India and China. And the second thing is, again, this is completely out of my understanding or arrogance, or ignorance, not arrogance, sorry, out of my ignorance, to ask that how much of philosophical training happens within the learning of Indian martial arts? because a little bit of my reading has made me understand that yes, there is quite a lot of concentrative exercises that you do. So if you can just explain it in a general language. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful remarks. The first question about knowledge transfer between China and India. I must admit that I'm not very familiar with current literature, but in my limited knowledge, I understand that there was this Tamil prince who was believed to be from the Pallava dynasty, and he went to China, and at that time he took his martial arts with him, and then he taught Chinese people that martial art along with the knowledge that they already have, giving birth to Shaolin. And then Shaolin became a place which became a library for these movement techniques, and that's how it went. And again, I have to fact check. This is just my understanding. And in terms of comparative studies, I have to look it up. I think it's a lot's been done. There's this martial arts research network. I highly recommend that you look it up, and there are some interesting people doing some really good work. And in terms of philosophies, I'm reminded of an instruction that one of my martial arts brothers would say, Lokesh Master would say. It's like the stick will teach you everything, in the sense that when you're spinning the stick in Silambam, if you get too arrogant, if you lose focus, then it's gonna give you a kiss, as he says, like it'll hit you right down the calf to bring you back to the attention, back to focus. And in terms of Kalaripayat, the movements become quite intense, especially when doing with a partner. There are these choreographed stick techniques in Kalaripayat called Koltari. When you do that, you have to be fully concentrated. You have to transcend thinking, let's say. If you don't do that, either you're going to slow down or you're going to get hit. So there is that kind of, let's say, practical philosophy. And apart from that, southern form of Kalaripayat, Silambam and Kuttu Varisai are placed in this broader context of Siddha knowledge. All of these martial arts, I don't think northern form of Kalaripayat, but these martial arts, they are attributed to these quasi-historical figures called Siddhas, who are also very prominent in Tamil culture. So there are these philosophies about body constitution. There are 96 philosophies about body constitution that form the basis of Varmam and other martial arts features, let's say. And I hope this answers your question. Thank you.
Can I ask something within the particular you study?
I'm afraid that my knowledge is very limited on those topics. But thank you for your question.
Any other? So, if there are no more questions, queries, or comments, so please allow me to speak few words, to take this opportunity here. Well, I am a faculty at African Studies, so let me relate it with Africa. Well, it's a matter of common understanding that each society had some level of development, some level of advancement throughout the history. And if you see the monument like the pyramids of Egypt, you can realize, one can imagine how advanced science they had. But if you today ask, probably in the most of the cases, you will see that history begins with the practice of colonialism. they are known only for the practice of slavery. Those people also came here. Colonial powers came here. They came here with the motive, with the stated motive of that making us develop, making us prosper. But despite of that, despite of the thousands years of our subjugations, we could carry forward our legacies, our past. And thanks to the all so-called snake charmers and beggars, many of them whom we have seen at the Prayagraj. So we were able to retain our knowledge, our wisdom. Of course, in the post-independence period, for about 75 years, almost 7 decades, we were just following the legacies of the colonialism, Marxism, where we never gave any importance to our thought, our wisdom. Now, thanks to the political changes, that we are giving importance to our traditions, our knowledge, and we, when we are trying to become a Viksit Bharat, I think Indian knowledge system, Bharati Gyan Parampara, is going to be one of the strongest pillar of that knowledge system, that Viksit Bharat. So I thank to the organizers for choosing this wonderful topic and giving me this opportunity to be a part of this conference. With regard to the papers, I think all papers were excellent and covering a range of the issues from the performing arts to the philosophy, spirituality of Bhagavad Gita, comparison with the Confucian, and then the epistemological and the modern management relations of the ancient text. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, those need to be studied, in fact. And the irony is, the Western universities are studying, but when we say, we just take the name of Ramayana, then we are branded to some particular political ideology. We are highly discouraged, and we are just focusing too much on the Western concept of secularism. But our tradition was something different. Synchronism, acceptance, acceptance to others, which we have been following since last thousands of years. I think these things need to be discussed, and those are rightly discussed here. Then the martial arts and all people, they discuss diversity in the Bharati Gyan Parampara, and I congratulate all of them for good presentation, and also advise them to finalize the paper and get it to bring it in the public domain. With this, thank you very much, and all the best to all the presenters. Thank you.
As we conclude this thought-provoking session, I extend my sincere gratitude to each of you for your valuable insights, engaging discussions, and enthusiastic participation. Your contribution have truly enriched our exploration of Bharat's knowledge tradition, helping us reimagine their relevance in a global context. A special thanks to our esteemed chair, Dr. Rajneesh Gupta sir, for his insightful guidance and for steering this session with such a depth and clarity. Your expertise and thoughtful moderation have been instrumental in shaping a meaningful dialogue. Sir, now I'll request you to come here and please distribute the certificates. Dr. Gitesh Nirban. Dr. Sudip Bhui. P.S. Gautam.
Wait.
Rachna ma'am. Dr. Pratyush Singh. Now I'll invite Vandana Mishra ma'am to give this certificate to sir. Thank you all for once again for making the session a success. Dhanyavad. Please come here for a group picture.